good to see and meet everybody, at least virtually, and I hope to meet you in person at some point in time. Thank you for taking your time out of your busy evening to join us. We'll try to make this as painless as possible, but hopefully impart some information that helps you along your entrepreneurial journey. So we have about a 40-minute presentation with a lot of time for Q&A. So feel free to ask any questions along the way. But we should be wrapping up about, what, 7:15, something like that, Monica, or 7:30? I'll get you guys out of here right on time. So let me just share my screen.
We can see.
Okay, like I gotta get the right one up. All right. And can you see a really big blue screen? Monica, can you see?
Yes.
Okay, good. I have multiple screens up, so if I'm looking away, that just means I'm like at a command center at my desk here. So just want to make sure I'm showing the right screen. Towards the end of the presentation, I want to show you some sites that'll be good for your market research information. So hopefully we'll be able to walk you through that. So you're walking away with some information, some resources that you could actually use today, and they are free, because that is very important when you're starting a business or running a business is the budget. So, okay, so this evening we talked about the housekeeping, videos on, chat or reaction. Please feel free to use the chat box. Monica will monitor. Please be on mute just so we can cut down on the background noises, and this session will be recorded and you will get access to that. I just want to say thank you to our hosts. This is the Congress Heights Community Training and Development Corporation. And this whole series is sponsored by your local agencies, DC government, the DC Department of Small Business and Local Business Development, as well as DC Housing and Community Development. So this is your tax dollars coming back to you, reinvesting in you and your ideas and your dreams, because the more of you that start businesses, you're only enriching the city. So we are very encouraging that you're taking this leap of faith. As I was saying, I'm BP. I go by BP, just makes it easier. I am a physician, but my career got a sidetrack, and I fell into the world of small business development. And so to date, I'm at over 400 businesses and government agencies, nonprofits that I've assisted, and now it's 30 million in grants, program revenue, small business loans over the course of my career. It's a little higher now. And I not only do these training sessions, but I have, in my former life, been a professor in the field of business, nonprofit management, leadership, etc. Feel free to ask any questions along the way. But you do have an opportunity for one-on-one sessions, and I provided the link in this presentation, so when you get it, feel free to, it leads you right to my calendar, and you could just choose a time that works for you. If there's not a day or time that works for you, feel free to email me, and I can make arrangements with you one-on-one. So we won't leave you hanging once we give you all this information. So we already went through the introductions, but feel free, if you have any websites, social media accounts, feel free to drop them in the chat. We do support local. I particularly do visit everybody's website, and I do share, spread the word to my colleagues about small businesses in the area. So this boot camp, this is session series 2 out of this summer series. We're talking about marketing and customers. It's a 4-part series. Tonight is going to be focused on the market research angle. And then on Thursday and the following Tuesday, we're going to go a little deeper into developing your strategy and understanding customers. And then we'll wrap up next week, Thursday, about how do we put this all together into a nice marketing plan that you can actually execute. The whole goal of this series is to help you understand what exactly is marketing about, and how do you execute on marketing principles so you can grow your business. So today's agenda, I'm going to do a recap of the last boot camp, just to highlight a couple of elements, and just bring home some of the things you have to be mindful of as the owner, entrepreneur in the business. And then we're going to go into the marketing discussion. I provide some resources that you will have at your disposal immediately. And then we go into some definitions. What's the marketing plan about? And then what's the research about? Okay. All right, a little disclaimer. I have to say this, in this world of the internet age, there's a plethora of information on any given topic. So we just want to let you know that we do our due diligence to make sure everything's accurate, but there's an overabundance of information out there. And this is to be general advice because we're not accountants, we're not lawyers. All of those things have to be provided by those professionals, but we can always direct you if you need that kind of high level counseling. We can also point you in the right direction. Okay. So our first boot camp was a couple of months ago. We went over kind of like, what does it mean to be a business owner and what's the difference between ownership and management? So just a little highlight. So we discussed what's an owner. That means you just own the assets and the liabilities of the business. But to be a manager means you're the one responsible for making the decisions. So if you're going to be the entrepreneur, you need to make a decision. Are you just going to be an owner, meaning you just own parts of the business, or actually going to work in the business and be the manager? And if you're going to be a manager, you got to understand the entrepreneurship role. That's a certain mindset and a way of thinking about business. It's not just about starting a business that makes somebody an entrepreneur. It's about their ability to pursue an opportunity. That's the key thing about being an entrepreneur. You're always looking for the opportunity. Okay? And then there's the entrepreneurial process. So whenever you're starting up or you're launching a new product or you're thinking of something new for an existing business, you're going to go through this kind of 5 steps. There's the idea, the opportunity evaluation, there's the planning, there's the launch, and there's the growth. Marketing falls in both the step 2 and step 3. Marketing involves trying to define the opportunity, and it involves the actual planning to pursue that opportunity. Just a little highlight about what managing is about. The challenge is there's a lot of things you have to pay attention to in a business. It can become overwhelming, but that's okay. That's the nature of the beast. But this is just a nice schematic to show you the elements you will have to just keep in front of mind as you are the manager. As the manager, you're going to be responsible for framing and scheduling the work that needs to happen within the business. You're controlling information. You're going to be leading people, and you're going to overseeing them as well as yourself in carrying out the actions to grow the business. And the work that you do are either going to be outside the organization or inside the organization. So that's the simplest way we can describe what you are going to be doing as a manager. So just know you will not know everything all the time. This is a learning process. So for some of you who have not started a business yet, or you just started, this is the perfect opportunity because it's just really trying to get your mind centered is that you are the center of the business. You're the director of it all. Okay. All right. And then on our last boot camp, we just highlighted the major systems of a business. Starting at the center, we know there's the legal system and compliance, making sure you have your insurance, you're abiding by all laws, you have your business structure set up, etc. And then depending on the type of business, there's a variety of systems that you need to be managing in order to grow the business. And so in this series, we're going to be focusing on the marketing side of things, which is just one system that overlaps in many different areas of the business. So as you're thinking about the type of business you're going to start, or if you are starting, if you started your business already, you just got to be mindful that your business, no matter how complex it may be, it's just a series of systems. And you just got to make sure they're all working in coordination. And you prioritize the work that you need to do to build each system to grow the business. So, as I said, this series is just going to focus on the marketing system. So let's get into some definitions, but let's hit you up with some free resources right at the beginning. So Many of you, some of you like to read an entire textbook or have some other resources to help you if you're outside of the session. So I put together a quick list of absolutely free resources. I've used some of the material in the presentation that you can download tonight, okay? So number one is there's a platform called OpenStax that provides free college textbooks, and they have 3 textbooks that are on there that have chapters on marketing. They're very good, easy to read, easy to understand. So either one you can choose, whether it's the business entrepreneurship or the principles of managing. And any of these titles that I've just listed, if you just put it in the Google search bar, the website should come up. Sailor Academy, which is an online platform that offers free courses and materials. They have a free course on marketing, and you can take the entire course if you want to. It's self-paced, so you determine how quickly you want to do it, or you can just simply download all the materials. And many of the items we talk about, they have additional supporting materials on their site. So their course is called Principles of Marketing. The U.S. Small Business Administration, which is your federal government agency, they have an online business guide, and they have 2 sections on their website that are dedicated to marketing. Very useful. I do use some of their resources in this presentation. So they have a nice 1-pager on market research, and then they have a nice 1-page web page on marketing and sales. Very easy to read and to digest. And then lastly, there's a local agency, NDC, it's a nonprofit, whose job is to market Washington, D.C. to the rest of the nation to encourage businesses to start in the city. And they have developed what's called DC Doing Business Guide. And again, it has some really nice, helpful resources, but it's focused more on DC, whereas the other resources are more general. So please go ahead, free to download. And I'm always mindful of the cost. I try to make sure I get you stuff that you can use readily. So those are your resources. So the way I like to look at businesses, I like to provide definitions so that everybody understands, because when we talk about starting a business or growing a business, it can get rather complex really quickly. So I like to start with a very basic definition of what is a business. So in my little brain, this is what I think of a business. It's an operation that provides a valuable offering to a customer or group of customers for a payment. That's it. The most simplest way you can look at it. But now let's break down a couple of those elements. So when I say it's an operation, meaning it's a legally established entity, meaning you have submitted your business registration, you have your business license, you have your insurance, and you're starting to develop the structure and the systems and the policies of the business. Now, as you're growing a business, you won't have everything built out, and that is quite okay, but you must have your business registration for DC, and you must have your license, and you must get enough insurance coverage, okay? So that operation is going to provide a valuable offering. Notice I just didn't say it provides a product or services. It's a valuable offering because businesses provide products and services and a customer experience. So it's a package deal. It's just not about the end item, the t-shirt I buy or the hair care product I buy. It's what else do I get in the process of buying a product. And then the valuable offering has to solve my customer problem. So we're not going to be providing products and services just because we want to provide it. No, the product and service must solve a customer's problem, because that's why they buy from businesses, okay? And that customer could be one group of customers, whether it's all women, all men, or it could be a variety of groups of different folks that are your customer or target audience. And we're going to get into that a little deeper next week, but just keep that in mind. You don't have to have one type of customer. You can be very varied with the same product offering. And in exchange, you're going to collect payments. You'll be surprised how many businesses are not on top of the payment collection. If you're not collecting some form of payment, then you're simply having a hobby. You do not have a business. That is the key to the business. Now, we'll get to profitability a little later, but you got to be able to collect the payment. And that's all part of the process of the customer experience as well. So we'll be mindful about that. Okay, so if that's a business, the other element you have to be mindful of is that that business is not operating in a vacuum. You're operating in a very dynamic environment, both internally and externally. So every business internally has resources, it has the people involved, and many of you, it's just you because you're the sole owner, you're the single startup, but you're, even if it's just you as representing the people, you still have a business culture, you have a physical layout and setup of your business that all influences how the business is going to operate. It has systems and policies, and these are all factors in the internal environment that can either be strengths or weaknesses. So it's really up to you as the entrepreneur, the owner, to recognize what are your business's strengths and what are your weaknesses. Because this internal environment, like I said, is not operating in a vacuum. It's operating in an external environment that it has a lot of things going on at the same time. It's rather chaotic, which makes it sometimes difficult to start and grow a business, but not impossible. But also means that if you're able to start and grow your business, it makes it even more rewarding when you're able to overcome these external challenges. And so these external forces are customer wants and needs, what the industry and competition is doing. And we're going to talk about that a little later this evening. What are the technology requirements? You have the government regulation, other forces and factors, including cultural norms and societal norms. All of those things are dictating how you're going to operate. Some of the things you will agree with and some of the things you will not agree with. But it's these things that are going on in the external environment. Not only are they challenges, but they also can be opportunities where you see there's a gap in the market. You see there's a need in the marketplace by a group of customers, and you can be the business to fulfill those needs. So let's not shy away from the external challenges, but learn to look at them as opportunities that you can take advantage of. Okay. Any questions so far from the group? Anybody in the chat?
No questions.
Okay.
Deborah did introduce herself. She has her name of her business is Georgetown Marketing Group. And they help business startups with all marketing needs, as she does commercial property acquisitions in all 50 states. Oh. Welcome to her. And she's at the library, so she has to be quiet.
Oh, okay. Great, good to have you. Thank you for joining us. Okay, so we just talked about what, and the simplest terms, what's the business? We just talked about the internal and external environment in the most simplest terms. So let's get the definition of marketing down. So we're all very clear on what it is. Now, I don't care what anybody tells you out in the world, because everybody got an opinion about marketing. It's one of those topics that everybody has a thought about it. But I'm going to give you the definition from the American Marketing Association. So this will be our starting point. And over the next couple of days in our series, I'm going to make this more and more practical for you so it doesn't seem so intimidating. So the American Marketing Association, they define marketing as the activity, set of institutions and processes for creating, communicating, delivering, and exchanging offerings that have value for customers, clients, partners, and society at large. I know that seems like a lot. It is lots of words, right? But you got to let's pay attention to what it's not saying. Marketing is not just your website. It's not just the brochure. It's not just a social media account. It's the entire process that a business is going to embark upon to meet the needs of their customer. So let's break down the basic components of that definition. So number one, the activity, institutions, and processes. All that means is that we're going to use a lot of different tools, practices, approaches, mechanisms, all those things to get marketing done. And that's all it means. It's the actual, maybe the technical software that you might use. It's the people you might use. It's the companies you might work with to get to market your business. So it's all the things we're going to use for marketing purposes. Okay. So all of these things that we're going to use, the outcome that we want is to create, communicate, deliver, and exchange offerings that have value. That means you want to make sure you're able to communicate to the customer what your products and services and offerings will do for them in a way that makes them feel comfortable and even more attracted to buy your product. So these are the key outcomes of marketing. So these are activities are the things we're going to use for marketing. These are the outcomes of marketing. We want to create value, right? So we want to make sure that our products and services solve a customer problem. That's what we mean by value. We want to communicate, meaning we want to be able to reach that customer in a way that makes them feel comfortable. We want to be the places that they're in, whether that be social media, whether it be a television ad, whether it be a blog article. It can be any combination of those things. And we also then we want to deliver. That means we want to get our products and services to that customer in a way that it continually adds value, that they feel a benefit from it, not only from just getting the product, but the method that it arrives. And so let me give you an example of the company that's probably the number one at this right now, and that would be Amazon. Amazon provides a laundry list of products, actual items, but they have mastered marketing because they have invested in building systems that will get that item to you in the fastest amount of time than most companies out there. That's why they're killing it. It's not that they're offering every hair product, every electronic at a good price. It's also that they can get it to you in a day or two. So they are looking at all the aspects of how can they provide value to your life, okay? So that's it. Keep that example in your mind. And so the customer, clients, partners, society at large, they're all the stakeholders that benefit from your business. So it's not only the person that's paying for your product and services, but the city, the society at large benefits from having good businesses that provide good products and services, that provide good customer experience. Everybody benefits when we have good businesses. And so marketing is that one system that plays a role in all of that, delivering value. Okay. Any questions? Anybody have any thoughts about this definition so far? Is it different than what you thought about? And Monica, let me know if anybody's posting in the chat.
Curious about there's a part I wanted you to touch on around the marketing. I read a book called Emotional Marketing, and in the book it talked about like the use of colors, shapes, and like the things that kind of ignite the customer to not only need the product, because right, we provide, you're supposed to be finding a point of need.
You're breaking up just a little bit. Say the last part again.
Not only so I know that we create a product that people need, but I want to hear more about the art of making a product that people will want.
That's you're jumping ahead. That's on to Thursday session and next Tuesday session, because what you're talking about is not only the product that people want in terms of solving a problem, right? But it's also the branding aspect that together evokes a certain emotions from people who buy products and services, because people buy feelings. So if I order from Amazon, let's go back to that example. If I order from Amazon, I'm not only buying the item that I'm putting into the cart, but I'm also buying the feeling, oh, I'm going to get this in 2 days. How happy will I be? Because maybe it's a gift for somebody. I'm getting relief that I found what I was looking for, and I found it at a great price. That's when they say about emotional marketing, people buy feelings. And so your job is to provide not only the end item, the actual physical item, but also the experience fulfills their emotional needs as well. And so the use of color, shapes, product design, packaging, the branding all feeds into that. Because our colors have a certain psychology and emotion attached to it. Shapes evoke a certain feeling psychologically. So when you have all of those components together, you have the right product. Like, let's say you're selling Tylenol. You have a pain reliever that can relieve your headache, but you not only have an experience where it's easy to order, easy to pay for, easy for it to get delivered. It comes in a package that's easy to open. The instructions are easy to read. All of that creates customer loyalty because now you solve needs that sometimes the customer doesn't even know they have. So that's what that book is trying to get at. But we go into that branding aspect. We start that discussion on Thursday and we follow with it next Tuesday. Because what I don't want is people like to jump ahead to the fun stuff. The fun part of marketing is the branding, is figuring out what the ad will look like, is, what will the colors be? But it's the market research that you need to do beforehand that helps drive the decision about what the product will be. What will the packaging look like? What will the assistance be? Does that make sense to you, Mr. Paul?
Yep, that makes sense.
Yeah, so we'll have fun with that part, but just don't overlook that the hard part is the market research. Everybody likes to skip through it, so that's what I'm trying to make that as easy as possible for you. But great question. Okay, anybody else has a question? Okay, so that was the American Marketing Association's definition of marketing, right? So at the center of it, it was all about the value. So there is a marketing concept that I'm going to use along with the definition, and it's simply just is saying that a business should seek to make a profit by serving the needs of the customer. So a business is not a business just to sell. A business is in business to solve a customer problem. And because you're solving customer problems, that is how you're going to become profitable. Because your attention is on the customer rather than your focus being on your product or your focus being on sales. Because it's very easy to lose focus of the customer and get so entangled and enticed by your product. But that's not the goal. You can love your product all you want, but if the market is not buying it, that's the customer telling you, I don't need or want your product, or I don't need or want the process that's associated with your product. So it's not about you. It's not about what you like. It's not about you and your business and what your business likes. It's all about the customer, okay? And I also want to reiterate about, it's not about the customer and it's about customer and not about selling. Because when we get fixated on the money part, we tend to use sales tactics that can actually turn off our customers. And all of us have experienced this. I mean, have you ever been somewhere where the salesperson was just like hounding you and you were like, look, I told you I'm just looking, And so you eventually you just like, let me leave. Or you visited a website and you keep getting the pop-up messages, right? And they're like, do you need help? Do you want to chat? And I'm like, no, I'm just looking through the website. Let me just look through the website. And that's because the company is focused on the sales tactics versus focusing on the customer, okay? But we're going to get into the details about that a little later, but just keep that in mind. Business is all about the customer, okay? So at the end of the day, with that marketing concept in mind and with that marketing definition in mind, effective marketing is a process. It's not a one and done type of thing. It's something you're going to do throughout the life cycle of your business. You're always going to be marketing. That doesn't mean you're always going to be paying for advertising or you're always going to be promotion, doing some sort of promotion. It just means you're always going to be doing marketing because marketing is focused on the customer and delivering the value. Now, to do effective marketing, you will be required to understand your customer or understand your customer groups. You got to understand their problems, their needs and wants. And in some books you might have read or some articles, they call that their jobs to be done. Because depending on the type of customer you're trying to attract, we all have different jobs. If you're going after women who are mothers, they have a different set of problems than if you're going after a man who has no children, if you're trying to sell them items. So that's what it's saying. You got to understand who exactly is their customer so you can identify their needs and then identify how your product is going to serve their needs. Not only do you have to understand the customer, you have to understand your industry and the competition in your industry. I know it's very tempting sometimes to say, oh, I have no competition. Please resist the temptation. Because even though you might not find another company doing exactly what you're doing, your customer may have alternatives to get their problem solved. So you got to be mindful of that. And we're going to talk about that just in a few minutes. And so once you understand that marketing is a process, you have to understand your customer, industry, and competition. Then you develop your strategy and the plan you need to execute around marketing for your business. Okay. Okay. So if we went over the marketing definition, marketing concept. Now, market research. Market research is a function. Remember, marketing is a process. And so the market research is one of the functions that you as the entrepreneur, the business owner, will have to manage because it's the link between the consumer, depending on whatever language you want to use, the public and the marketer. It's the link between your customers and your business because it's all about information. Information about that customer, their wants and needs, information about your industry, and information about their competitors that you're going up against. And you need that information to what? Identify and define opportunities, right? Because remember, it's the opportunity that you're trying to fulfill a customer need, but also to identify any problems or challenges. Remember, you talked about that external environment. If you don't do your market research, you won't know what threats might be in the environment out there that might can harm your business. That information is also to generate, refine, and evaluate your actions. So you're never going to do marketing without having a means to measure how effective your marketing is. Because how else are you going to know when is it time to change? When is it time to update? When is something not working? Okay. So that information is going to use to monitor your performance as well as improve understanding on the entire process. So this is why marketing doesn't get the attention that it needs because it requires attention. It's the real behind the scenes work that sometimes as entrepreneurs, we don't get excited about doing. But if you get into the habit of doing it early in the business, you'll reap the rewards and the benefits from doing it. So marketing, the core of it is research, and that research is all about gathering and reviewing and looking at information and asking yourself very critical questions. Okay? Any comments, feedback, thoughts so far? Monica, I don't see you on my screen, so let me know if anything's
No, we're good.
Okay, great. So with that market research, it forms one of the cornerstones of a marketing plan. So here I just wanted to list some major components of a marketing plan. There's any number of templates. If you just put in marketing plan template, you get a lot of examples. So you don't worry about finding a template. You will find one, not a problem. And they're all slightly vary but they all have these general components that you should have. And depending on the type of business, you might have some added areas you need to include. But let me warn you, let me urge you, let me encourage you, resist the temptation to just find a template, download it, and try to start writing in the information. Resist at all costs. If you need to call me beforehand, call me. Like, I can talk you off that mountain. I'm telling you, you're going down the wrong path if you do it. Okay? What you want to do is that you don't want to jump into just writing your plan, but you do want to focus on the market research element of it. So let's go over the other components that you're gonna need as part of the plan, and it reinforces the reason why you need the market research. So first part, most marketing plans, they'll have an opening segment like an executive summary. You'll have an outline of maybe the statement of the organization's mission and vision. You'll have some goals and objectives, very common stuff. And then you'll lay out all the key findings that you found during your market research process. And you'll write down what was key about your target audience, as well as the location of your business and the location of the target audience. You write down some key information about the industry, including the types of products in your industry, the sales, how large is the market, how much sales is done in that industry, as well as some outline of pertinent suppliers, vendors, etc. And then you'll do a competitive analysis, mostly saying you'll pick some key competitors and you'll line up your business against theirs. And don't worry, I have a worksheet for you for that. And then you'll have a section that will just describe your products and services. And then the core of your marketing plan is identifying the strategy and tactics that you're going to employ. See, the beginning part is just the introduction about the business. You go into the research, because the research set is dictating why you've made certain decisions about the strategy and the tactics, meaning the actions, like what kind of advertisement you're going to have, what's the branding going to look like, okay? So you write up about the strategy and the tactics. The next part of that core element of the plan has to be a timeline and budget. If I do not consider any document a plan, if you do not have a timeline and budget, because yes, you might say your strategy and all the tactics you're going to have, you're going to use social media and you're going to get a new logo, and that's great. But you got to identify, when is all of this going to happen? Because you need the marketing to drive the interaction with customers that will lead to sales. So you got to put a timeline. Things just can't run on forever, because that timeline needs to be tied to a budget. How much is all of this is going to cost? If you have $500 in your pocket to do marketing for the year, and sometimes that's all you have, then you have to spend that money wisely. So the decisions you make in the strategy and tactics have to match up with that budget. You can't write out $5,000 worth of activities when you only have $500 to spend on marketing. You can't do that. So you do have to prioritize what is going to be the most impactful activities that I need to do to market the business or to market that product. Here again, you have to step back from what you would like to do and focus on what is best on the business connecting with the customer. Okay? Because let me tell you something, you're going to get addicted to your social media. I'm telling you, you're going to get addicted to putting your posts. You're going to have some video recording. You're going to post it. You're going to like people saying likes and all that, making comments. That's great. But if that kind of engagement doesn't lead to sales, it really doesn't matter. So you have to choose wisely. And then you have to monitor that, because if the actions are not producing the results you would like, you have to change it. You just don't keep doing the same thing and thinking you're going to get a different result. So having a strategy and tactics is going to be the decisions you make as a result of the research. But the timeline, budget, and monitoring are going to be needed so you will know that the marketing actions are actually working. Remember, at the end of the day, you need to engage with customers so they see the value of your product and services so that they buy it and you collect the payment. If you don't collect payment, then the marketing's not working. Are we clear on that? Where does everybody feel about that? Any thoughts? Because I know I'm busting somebody's bubble right now. Anybody got any comments on that?
No comments? Yeah.
Oh, okay. All right. So I'm assuming you CEOs out there, you guys got it then. Lastly, I'll just add here that your marketing plan, sometimes it can be a standalone document all by itself, but most times, particularly small businesses, it's going to be a component of your larger business plan. You could do it either way. And we'll have all the templates you need to do it however, which way you want to do it, okay? So just want to put that note there. So no questions or thoughts? Everybody's digesting this?
Sounds good.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm definitely in digestion mode right now.
At that, you know what? That's you're on the right track. I cannot tell you how many people have wasted money because they skipped the digestion part. They went straight to the fun part, the part they love. They got all the business cards, they got their website up, they feel so proud of themselves. And I'm like, if you're not making any money, it really doesn't matter how fancy your business card might look like. Okay. All right. So we went over definition of a business. We know that the business has an internal and external environment. We know that there's a definition to marketing and there's a marketing concept, and underlying that concept is delivering value to customers. So it's being customer focused. We now know that marketing is a process, and the plan is an outline of not only description of the business, it's an outline of all the market research and your findings and the decisions you've made about the marketing strategy and tactics. And it outlines those tactics on a timeline as well as a budget, and you're going to indicate how you're going to monitor your progress. So that's what we've covered. We covered that in about 35 minutes. So you guys are on track. CEOs, you're there. If you got that, if you're digesting that in 30 minutes, you're on track to having a successful business. So next step, what's the research look like? Okay. Now, the key part of the research is just looking at a lot of data sources, a lot of information sources. One of the reasons some small business owners and entrepreneurs don't do market research is because it can become very, very expensive. A lot of the data sources that the big companies use that's proprietary, but it's really detailed and analytical, is very expensive, and it takes a lot of money to get access to it. But you don't have to start up with a very expensive set of data to start with. There are free and very reasonable access to data that can help you get you started. And to be frank, this is what I use the majority of the time. Unless I'm working on a very special project and I need to buy very extensive labor market data, I just know that I have some key resources that I always go to. They're free, but it takes a lot more of my effort to go through it. So I'm going to highlight some ones, and then we're going to do a demo of 2 sites that you're going to use for sure. Okay. So the SBA, they did a really good job outlining some data sources. So they outline mostly the federal level of data sources, but I like the way they have categorized it. So I'm just going to highlight some categories of data that you should be looking at. Number one, general business statistics. So you want to understand your industry and your competition. So you got to look at sites that are going to give you that information. The Census Bureau will be your best friend, okay? Because that's what they do. They've compiled not only information on individuals, like, we're all familiar that we filled out the census the census form, but they also compile businesses about information about businesses and industry. So there's some general statistics. How many businesses are doing the same thing that you're doing in the same zip code or city or state, that kind of thing. There's consumer statistics. So you want to understand what is your target audience spending money on? How much money do they make? Where do they spend their money? How much money do they have left to spend on stuff that you're offering? That kind of information. What are the credit ratings? Believe it or not, there are sites that'll give you general information about the population that you're dealing with. Demographics, again, the Census Bureau is going to be your best friend. So you want to know in the location or geography that you're operating your business. You know, what's the age breakdown? What's the racial breakdown? What's the gender breakdown? What's the educational attainment? All of those things influence what we buy. It influences what we need or want as a customer. So you want to have a great idea of that, right? Economic indicators. You want to understand how is the economy doing? This is the big thing on the news, and most of us look at it like, what are they talking about? You know, we have inflation nowadays. That means prices have gone up, you know, exponentially. And so you want to have a good understanding of what's the economy like and where you're operating your business. So it's more expensive to run a business at this date in time than it was 2 years ago. That's that you can say that's an overriding statement for this of the economy nowadays. So those are the kinds of things you want to know. But you want to know, is there the possible downturn in the economy? Is there a recession looming? That kind of thing. So the Bureau of Economic Analysis has all that information for you. You want to look at employment data. People who are employed and those who are unemployed, they spend money on different things. If you're employed, you're going to spend money not only on your care and your needs, but you're going to spend money on things that are related to your work. And so you got to understand how many people are employed, what percentage are not employed, how long they've been unemployed, etc. You want to have information on income and money, because that all influences what we buy and how we buy goods and services. You want to look at production and sales, trade statistics, and other specific information about your industry. So this is a very nice general guide. If you use these areas of the major areas you're going to look at on a regular basis in regards to your business. Okay. And like I said, this is all on SBA's website. You go there under the market research section. All of these are clickable links, so it'll take you right to that information. Okay. Now, a lot of those categories, what we just talked about, were involving the industry. You must know your industry. And some of you may be in more than one industry, so you have to recognize that. And so the United States classifies industries, we call it the NAICS code. So it's the North American Industry Classification System. So we have the major industry sectors have what we call a 2-digit code. And then each industry sector is kind of broken down into and it gets down to what call it a 6-digit code. You must know your code, because if you know your industry, it makes it a lot easier for you to do your market research. Okay. So your industry code is going to be based upon your primary business activity. So for example, Ms. Kiera has the hair creamery, right? Now, she has to look at not only the retail aspect of hair products, but if she's making the hair products, she also has to look at the manufacturing industry for hair products. So that will be 2 different industries she has to look at. If she doesn't, you might be missing some very key information. So let me give you an example. So if you consider yourself a retailer, you're selling products and you're in the retail, the 2-digit code is 44. But let's say you open up a little grocery store or supermarket. You classify yourself, you're going to be like a little Giant or Safeway. The industry code is 445110 for a grocery store. But if you're a convenience retailer, Like you're like, if you're in a New York, you're in a corner store, right? Or you like a little mini 7-Eleven. That's not classified the same way as the grocery store, even though you might sell some of the same items. The convenience store is going to be classified under 445131. So this is why you got to really identify what are my products and services and what industries do they fall under. Now, luckily for you, the Census Bureau, this is the website address, has a NAICS code website. You can simply type in keywords and it'll tell you the industry that matches up to those keywords. So you can find your industry really, really quickly, okay? The reason why I put the web address here is because there is a NAICS.com address, but they will try to charge you money down the road. Use the free website. This is your taxpayer dollars at work for you. So use the government website, get your codes. It tells you a lot of other information about your industry as well. Now, once you understand what industry you're in, then you can start looking at other sources of information for your industry. Number one will be your government agencies. So like we talked about just previously, you have your employment data for industry, you have your sales data for industry. Your government agencies will have a lot of that information, including your local tax agents, okay? Every industry has an industry association. You could do a simple Google search, hair care products industry, hair care products association, and Google does a great job of identifying those associations that you should be affiliated with. Industry association produce a lot of reports and statistics about the industry that are going to be very, very helpful to you. And many of them, they have very reasonable membership fees. You should consider joining if it's part of your budget for the marketing, okay? Sometimes you can't join right away because it might be too expensive. At least sign up for the newsletter, okay? There are a lot of private research companies that provide industry reports. So I listed a few of them. I've used all of these. So IBS World, Statistica, CB Insights, Vault.com. All of them have different pay structures. Some are more expensive than others for a single report on the industry, and others have more of a subscription model that's far more affordable. But you can go to any one of those, put in your industry and see what they have. Some of these companies specialize in some industries more than others. So it's good to look around at each of them to see what they're producing about that industry. And in many consulting firms, because some of them specialize in particular industry, produce articles and reports all the time. And many times it's free. So what I like to do, I go to these major consulting firms like McKinsey or Deloitte or BCG, and I will sign up for the newsletter. And every morning they send out their newsletter. I just look to see if there's anything of interest. If it's in an industry I'm working in, I'll save it. If not, I'll just delete the email, but I'm not paying for it, okay? So step one, we gotta know our industry. We gotta know our industry code. And we got to know the sources of information for our industry. Does that make sense to everybody?
Makes
Yep.
sense.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Perfect,
Yep.
perfect. All right, so that's industry. Next is the competition. Let's pay attention. Remember I said that some of you are going to think, oh, I don't have any competitors. Wrong. Let's be a skeptic and think there's got to be a competitor, okay? So I provided the three general classification of competitors. So first is the direct. The direct competitor is the most obvious one, right? That means it's another company that's selling like the same or similar products as you, going after the same target market as you, right? So they're very much like you. And some of you are trying to grow to be probably one of your major competitors, because usually that's what inspires us, because we go somewhere, we buy a product and be like, there gotta be a better way to do this, and we think we can do it, and you probably can. So some examples will be McDonald's versus Burger King, or Pepsi versus Coke, okay? So those are direct competitors. What gets a little tricky is trying to determine who's an indirect competitor. So an indirect competitor is a business in the same market, but offers slightly different products and services. But the key is that their products and services might be different, but potentially can satisfy the same customer you're going after. So here again, you got to put yourself in the mindset of the customer because they're choosing that particular business over yours for some reason, even though the product and service is not exactly like what you're offering. So a couple of interesting examples here that I provide. So Taco Bell versus Subway. You're saying to yourself, I would think they're direct competitors, but they're in the same category as fast food, but their menu is completely different. And so you have to recognize that, oh, if I want Taco Bell, I'm going for the more Mexican, might do something a little spicy. Then I'm going for a Subway, wanting a freshly made sandwich that might be a more healthy version of lunchtime. Okay. So just keep that in mind of who would be an indirect competitor to you. Now, separate from those two, which are fairly straightforward, there's also something we call the replacement competitors, meaning they sell a product or service that's both different in category and type, but the customer, for whatever reason, is choosing to buy from them. Even though they're completely different from you, the customer is buying from them because they are solving some sort of pain point. When I say pain point, I'm talking about the needs or the wants of that customer. So an example may be, let's say if you're in the food industry, a customer may go to a restaurant to get something to eat, or they can go to a coffee shop to get something to eat. So instead of a sit-down meal at a restaurant like a Fridays or Applebee's, they might say, oh, the coffee shop is right here. They have sandwiches. They have drinks. I'll just stop in there. You wouldn't think of a coffee shop being a place to get a full meal, but the customer is choosing to replace the restaurant with the coffee shop because they're offering something of value. It may be convenient. It may be, I don't have enough time. I would love to sit down at Cheesecake Factory and have lunch, but I don't have time to drive out there. I don't have time to order the DoorDash. But Starbucks is right down the street and they have specialty sandwiches and I'll get something nice to drink. I'm getting full either way. So be mindful of the replacement competitors. And this takes a lot more thought, which is a good reason why you want to know your industry. Because when you're doing your industry research, you'll learn about how customers are spending their money on those products and services, okay? And again, I put in, this is one of my favorite resources, it's HubSpot, they're great. It's a CRM software company, but they write great articles on marketing stuff. So this is hyperlinked, so when you get a copy of the presentation, you can go right to their article, okay? Any questions so far? All right, so I included just to help you out, there's a, once you start identifying competitors, you can do what's called a competitor profile. And so there's a PDF, Monica, you have it, you can post it in the chat. I just put one together, you can customize it to fit your needs, however that works for you. But here you're just laying out your competitors one by one. You might have a longer list, you might just do the top 3, whatever you want. And you write down how they add up in various categories, and then you can compare yourself to them, okay? All right, so industry competition. What I'm going to add to your list of your tools is what's called a 5 forces framework. And this allows you to take all that industry information, that competition information, and kind of put it in a little form so you can look at it and really study it to make good decisions, okay? And so 5 forces is just that framework to help you understand the competitive forces. Remember we talked about all the external forces? So what it does, it outlines 5 elements that are going on in your industry. Number 1, the buyers, the suppliers, new entrants, meaning new companies that might be offering something that you're offering, substitute products and services, and existing competitors. And what you're going to do is, and it's like I said, it's a lot of templates like it. You're just going to write down information so you can see which one of these forces are more influential in your industry? For instance, if you're going after a set of customers that are very powerful, meaning they dictate the price, you need to know that about that industry because you might not be able to charge what you want to charge because the buyers are so influential. Same thing for suppliers. If you're in an industry and there are only one or two suppliers that provide the raw materials or the things you need to make your product, guess what? They're going to be able to charge what they got to charge to get the money from you. And therefore that will dictate how much you can charge your customer. So this is a nice, quick little framework to write notes about your buyers, suppliers, new entrants, substitutes, and your competitors. So you can try to figure out which one of these areas that I really pay attention to, okay? And I've included a little example of the things you can write down. And it's not fancy. It's on a simple piece of paper and you write bullet points. Because when it's time to make a decision, you're gonna determine in your strategy which one of these elements you really need to deal with, or if it's not of consequence to you at all. Okay. Any questions about the 5 forces? Okay. Well, we're gonna wrap it up with the demographics. So your market research is industry and competition. You have your industry sources that's going to help you drive you to understand who are your direct and indirect competitors. You're going to take the industry and competitive information. You're going to take your 5 forces and write down some notes as which ones are the most influential factor in your industry. The other thing you're going to do is now you're going to look at the demographics. Now you're going to look at the people, the customers that you're trying to go after. The first, so I put just a basic starting point of some of the areas you want to look at about your customers. And your list can get longer than this, but this is just the basis I start up with. So number 1, you want to look at your population. How many people live in the area that you're trying to start your business or grow your business? You know, what's the gender, what's the race, what's the age, what's the total population breakdown? You also want to look at housing. What kinds of housing you're in the neighborhood that you're trying to start or grow your business? Is it single family housing? Is it multifamily development? Because those households spend money on different items. And you need to know that. If you're selling products that are for single family houses, but you're located in a neighborhood that only has apartments, then your marketing will have to go to another geographical area because that immediate neighborhood will not support what you're offering unless you change what you're offering to tailor to that market. Okay. As we mentioned before, you want to look at the education, income, and then consumer spending. So all of those, the earlier websites we talked about, they're going to give you a lot of information about this. But one platform I absolutely want to show you is that DC has invested a lot of money, I'm talking about DC government, and on the DC Data Hub. And they have provided the entire population of DC, and they have broken it down in all these categories. So it's called the DC Data Hub. And I'm going to go ahead and exit from here and show you a quick little demo of it. Okay. So I just need to. Okay. 1 second. Okay. All right. Do you see my screen? It says OP Demographic Data Hub.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So this is the site. I think in the last year and a half, they did a lot more investment in it. So it gives you a lot of information. And so it takes all that census data from the federal government side and just concentrate everything about DC. So if you're starting a business in DC, this is where you want to go. If you went to a private company, it would charge you thousands of dollars to get the same information, okay? But it just means that you got to do the digging. All right, so they have a demographic data at glance. So there's the population of DC, 689, which, by the way, in the last 20 years, that has increased by almost 200,000 people. That's good to know. To home ownership rate, household. So if you're selling products that is targeting to households, to 312 households, the median income is 90,000. For some of you, the products and services that you offer is strongly dictated by income. You need to know that. The number of employer establishments. So this is, if you're selling to other businesses, there are 23,000 businesses in DC that are employers. The poverty rate is 15%. Median age is 34, and the median rent is $1,600. Okay. If you scroll down even more, they provide a nice summary graphic called district wide. Right? Did everybody see that? What's even great about this site is that you can look at data from across the entire district, or you can look at it by ward. And because DC is one of those rare geographical areas that is broken down by ward, that in terms of the political boundaries, it's very critical, because this is a city that operates based upon the quadrant and your ward. Okay, so if you're saying to yourself, "Oh, I want to start a business," but it's going to be located in Ward 1, Ward 1 has a completely different demographic profile than if you were to start a business in Ward 7. So this is a great site for you to take a look to see, okay, which segment of the city is going to fit the product and services that I'm offering. And if you're trying to serve a neighborhood that you live in, you got to make sure your product and service is fitting that neighborhood. Okay. So Ward 1, you have about 85,000 people. You see the median age is 32. Household income of 110. Okay. Poverty rate of 10%. Now let's click over to Ward 7. Okay. So let's look at that. Total population 84,000, about even with Ward 1, right? Median age of 34 is similar. But take a look at the income and poverty rate. And this is not to say anything that's bad about it, it's just saying it's different from another geographical area of the city. So median household income, 48,000, poverty rate 25, unemployment 16%, right? No judgment on it. It just lets you know that this neighborhood is going to require, and all neighborhoods require goods and services, a different type of goods and services. It might be the same category, but it might have to be at a different price point. It might be this slightly different category. The pricing might even be the same, but the delivery method might be different. So this allows you to look at this and say, okay, what is the target market that's most fitting, and then where are they in DC? Does that make sense to everybody? We're good? All right, I got one more site to show you, and then we're wrapping up. Okay, so if you say to yourself, well, I don't want to just sell to just in DC, I might want to be metro.
One second, everyone. I'm reaching out to him. VP, you're frozen, but I see that you're talking. She's rejoining us, everyone.
Not sure what happened there. Can you guys see me and hear me now?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes,
Not see yet, but
Yeah, I can't get my video on. Zoom just bounced me out for some reason.
it did that to me earlier.
Yeah, it's not letting me show my video for some reason, but okay. Let's see if I can just share my screen so you can just,
You're up.
okay. Are you seeing Census Business Builder?
Is it blue screen?
Yeah,
yes,
okay,
yes.
perfect. All right, so for this one, the Census Bureau put all this information about businesses and industry and demographics in one site. And so if you're looking to start a business or be in a particular industry at anywhere, any location, you can put in either a zip code, a county, a metropolitan area. So for here, I'm just going to do a little random one. I'm going to say we're going to do personal services. I'm going to photographer, business, and I want to look at the entire Washington, D.C. metropolitan area. And when you do that, whatever you type in, it'll start to autofill for you. And then you say, go to map, and then it starts to retrieve information. And as you can see, it's looking at the entire area. It starts to give you information between this metropolitan area and other metropolitan areas in terms of population. But the tabs at the top are the most important part. So you can change your industry if you want to. You can change your location if you want to, and then you can start to add variables. So here under population, you can look at customers, consumer spending, the businesses, the workforce, permits, all kinds of information. You can add secondary characteristics as well. Socioeconomic, the housing. So this allows you to look beyond DC into a much wider geographical area, because the good thing about this area, you not only get to sell to DC, but you also have the opportunity to sell to the larger metropolitan areas. So I just wanted to make sure I show that to you. So 2 tools, all free, but are available to you to help you do your industry research, your demographic research, and your competitor research, okay? So that's all I have for you today. Any questions so far? I think we're just over a little time, but I'll stop my screen. Any questions, or are you still digesting?
One question, how often should a business do a marketing plan?
Oh, great question. At bare bones minimum, you should have an annual plan. But here's the thing. This current business environment is changing so quickly that I would not rely on an annual plan. I would probably do a quarterly plan. So every quarter, I'm looking back to see the decisions I made, if it's still valid. And if so, I would keep going. If it's not, if conditions have changed dramatically, I would go ahead and redo the plan at that point. But if you set up your system in such a way, you won't take the same amount of time each time you do your planning, because you'll be so good at it. Because you're constantly going to be observing your internal and external environment. You won't have to start from scratch all the time. So at least minimum yearly, but I wouldn't rest my hat on that given today's environment. Does that make sense?
Makes sense.
You said yes.
Perfect.
Thanks, Tamika.
Anybody else? Okay. If there's no questions, I'm going to send Monica a copy of all the presentation, or at least a link to the presentation. And you guys will have it by probably tonight or tomorrow morning. Please review it again before the next session, which you'll get more resources on Thursday. And Thursday, we're going to go right into talking about the customers and developing the strategy. So now we're starting to get to the fun part. Now that we get the research stuff out the way. And you're welcome to email me anytime.
If I may say, this was an outstanding presentation. It's way above my level, but it doesn't mean that I don't appreciate it. Each slide was filled with information, and I'm going to need to take some time with it. So I thank you for it. I wouldn't have you do anything differently. I wouldn't have you make it any less information intensive. This is just what I need without knowing that I need it.
Thank you so much. But guess what? This is it. If you get this, you're good to go. But every new piece of information you get about a business system is always going to be new the first time. Once you see it enough times, and you will never understand it the first time around, that's fine. That's why entrepreneurship is a practice. It's not perfection, and you will not know everything all the time. That's why people who are successful at it are constantly learning. It's a learning man's game. If you like learning, you'll be successful as an entrepreneur. This is why most people just work at a job, because somebody else is making the decision. But I thank you so much for your kind words, but you were exactly where you're supposed to be. And one day you'll be teaching this.
Just a reminder that you'll use the same link and the password that you used today for your next 3 sessions, and feel free to pass that link on to anyone that you know. And also, don't forget to drop your websites into the chat. So BP, and once we log off, I'll download the chat and send them to BP so we could see your website as well. Anything else, Dr. Walker?
No, that's it. And I'll send you the link to everything.
Okay. Thanks, everyone, and we'll see you guys on Thursday.
Yeah, sorry for the tech difficulty. We'll get that squared away for the next session.
Thank you.